For me, enjoying a piece of media involves two facets: experiencing the media and discussing it. A movie or a show might be near perfection, but be otherwise uninteresting to discuss. Likewise, another show or movie might be extremely flawed, but could be the catalyst for a deep analysis. The Super Mario Bros. Movie exists in a sort of crossroads between these extremes, being a fairly average film that doesn't lend itself well to analysis. There isn't much to explore within its by-the-numbers narrative. In spite of this, I found myself appreciating the film as time passed. What exactly made this film so enjoyable? Simply stating that the film is shallow and derivative feels too easy and unsatisfying. So I'll summon all my strength I can gather and try to conduct a literary analysis of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Wish me luck. The theme of the movie focuses on perseverance. To many of you, this might seem obvious, but there's a subtle nuance to this theming. To examine this, we need to step back and think about what makes the medium of video games distinct from other mediums. In my opinion, the core difference is that the audience is an active participant rather than a passive one. Regardless if the game being played is a fighting game or a visual novel, games require some form of effort to be fully experienced. In many ways, this effort might be a mental one, where thinking is key to progressing. More commonly, this effort is mechanical, where the effective execution of certain actions is critical for progress. In these action games, players will have to grow in their understanding of the game in order to succeed. They must push past challenges in order to reach these goals. It's fitting that a movie dedicated to the face of video games would anchor its theming around the unique attributes that makes the medium of video games special. Mario's journey mirrors the journey one might take playing a Mario game for the first time. Likely a player will find the game alien and confusing. However, with enough time and practice, they will begin to come to grips with the rules of the game and how they should succeed. They will use the lessons they've learned along the way to reach the end and win the game. Mario's journey isn't necessarily about how much he grows or changes, but more about how he persists in spite of hardships. He uses his ingenuity to take on foes who are more experienced with this new world than he is. Mario always had the capacity for greatness, but the sting of failure limits what he believes he's able to achieve. It's only when he has motivation to push forward, in this case saving his brother, is he able to rise to the challenge. In this way, a rather generic theme becomes elevated because of how it draws from the uniqueness of video games as a medium. There are a few aspects of the film that undercuts this theme. Before I start this critique, I do want to mention something briefly. I personally believe that it's important to view the vision of the art when critiquing it, as improvement and getting closer to the art's vision is the core goal of these discussions. I believe that the short runtime and frantic pace of the film is intentional, likely to emulate the frenetic and fast-paced nature of the games it's inspired by. In this sense, considering that the movie is most concerned with brevity, it would be important to examine how effectively each scene is able to further its themes. One such scene worth critiquing is the brothers' first plumbing job. While this scene is entertaining, for how early it is in the film it takes place, it doesn't do a good job at establishing the themes of perseverance and failure. The brothers' former boss and family go on and on about how insane it is for them to be starting a new business, that they're bound for failure. However, the failure we see in this first job comes from an accident rather than any sort of inadequacy that the brothers have to grow out of. If I were to make any sort of change to the film, I would replace this scene with a short montage of the brothers taking on multiple jobs and failing. This would establish the idea that working towards goals isn't easy and that you have to endure in order to succeed. It would also pair well with Mario's training montage with Peach. While I personally think this change would benefit the film, one might argue that it's too drastic of a change. To explore a subtler change, we can shift our critique to the characterization of Princess Peach. Before I begin, I do want to mention that I do enjoy this new interpretation of Peach. I like the voice direction, adjustments to her character design to allow her to be more action-oriented, and I like all the funny faces she makes. This version of Peach is so much fun that it's gotten me to appreciate the game version more than I did before. By taking Peach out of the damsel role, she functions as a role model for Mario and the audience, an example of who they could become if they never gave up. While I love how impressive the character is, The core issue with her contribution to the theme is that Peach is only capable of being impressive. What I mean is that, unlike characters like Mario, Luigi, and even Bowser, Peach lacks a dynamism that allows her to be relatable. While Bowser can be intimidating and the brothers can be courageous, they also have moments where they get to be silly or vulnerable. Without these moments of dynamism, they wouldn't be nearly as endearing. Because Peach is now a character that we can only marvel from afar rather than place ourselves in the shoes of, the themes of the film become less cohesive. Like I mentioned before, I like this interpretation of Peach. I think it does more good for the story than bad, and I wouldn't want to do a massive upheaval of her character. If I had to make a small adjustment to the film, I'd change the joke at the end of the training montage to have her getting the course in less tries than Mario, rather than the first try. It would allow the character to be grounded and to be naturally impressive. Plus, you could still make a joke at Mario's expense. It was really fun making this analysis of this movie. However, there is something rather disingenuous about examining it in this way. It's almost as if I'm trying to justify my enjoyment of the film by proving that it's more nuanced than it actually is. While I do believe that the themes of the film were constructed with care, I'd be lying if I said it was the core reason I liked it. The film's biggest strength has to be its aesthetic. While some people would label the film as style over substance, I personally believe that the style is the substance. Despite considering myself an artist, conducting artistic analysis can be quite challenging for me. Creating art is easy, but finding the right terminology to describe how the visuals and audio of a particular piece work is hard. In spite of this challenge, I do want to take the time to explore the visuals as I believe they make up the majority of the film's appeal. To start things off, I want to mention that my enjoyment of the film's visuals doesn't come from nostalgia. I unknowingly watched the movie as its own thing, rather than an adaptation. Because I divorced my expectations of what an entry in the Mario franchise is supposed to look and sound like, I found myself appreciating those core elements that make up the Mario aesthetic. From the pipes that snake along the mountainsides, the floating bricks, and the inviting saturated colors. These elements and more contribute to a perpetual sense of whimsy. When thinking about the movie's visuals, I came to an epiphany. When we look at the experience of a video game, we can break it into three broad facets: visuals, audio, and gameplay. All of these facets combine to make up the experience of the game itself. These elements work best when combined, but it doesn't always work isolated. If we were to compare video games to a cake, it would be strange to say, I like this cake, but I wish I could enjoy it without the flour and eggs. On the other side, there is some benefit to the idea of wanting to experience the visuals and audio of a game without playing it. There's always the solution of watching a Let's Play or listening to the soundtrack of the game, but there's always the sense that you're not getting the full experience. This is the power of film adaptations, allowing viewers to appreciate the audio and visuals without the sense that they're missing out on the full experience. Most game-to-movie adaptations tend to be more divergent, making changes to have these properties function in this medium. While I prefer my adaptations to be weird and wild, I think there's a merit to being more faithful. In this way, the Super Mario Bros. Movie justifies its own existence, as a means to appreciate what makes the world of Mario great in a new way. There's something to be said about loving the bespoke character animation and commanding score, and getting to experience those things in a game. It leads to a new appreciation of the character and his world. In other words, the Super Mario Bros. Movie looks and sounds great. And I think that's all I have left to say.